The California sun blazed mercilessly that afternoon, bouncing off the silver stars that lined the sidewalks of Hollywood Boulevard. Tourists laughed, cameras clicked, and street performers sang for spare change. But amid the noise and glitter stood a small, silent figure. A little girl holding a piece of cardboard that read, in shaky letters, "For sale, the $100." At her feet lay a scuffed brown guitar case. Her name was Mara, only 9 years old. Her dark hair was uneven, trimmed by her mother's trembling hands. The faded blue T-shirt she wore hung loosely, one size too big. She didn't call out, didn't wave. Just stood there quietly, clutching her cardboard sign. Her wide eyes watching the endless stream of strangers who hurried past without seeing her. Beside her rested her late father's guitar. Its body scratched and dulled, yet still glimmering faintly under the sunlight, like a memory that refused to die. He used to play it every night, singing her to sleep with lullabies that made the world feel safe and small. But 6 months ago, everything changed. A car crash had taken her father's life. Since then, her mother had lost her job, bills piled up, and the fridge sat nearly empty. So that Saturday morning, while her mother cried softly in the next room, Mara packed her father's guitar, grabbed a torn piece of cardboard, and walked 5 blocks to where tourists bought souvenirs. Her plan was simple: sell the guitar, buy food, maybe even a small cake to make her mother smile again. Before we go on, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one good heart to change another's world, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. It helps stories like Mara's reach more hearts. As the hours passed, people hurried by without slowing down. Some offered a sympathetic smile, others averted their eyes, unable to face her quiet sadness. One man offered her $10, but Mara shook her head. Her father's guitar, she decided, was worth at least $100. Still, no one stopped. The city was too loud, too busy, too full of dreams to make room for hers. Then, as the sun began to sink behind the palm trees, a shadow fell across her sign. Mara looked up. A tall man with long blonde hair and sunglasses stood there, a small guitar pick twirling between his fingers. His voice, when he finally spoke, was rough but gentle. "Selling that, sweetheart?" he asked. Mara nodded. He knelt down and opened the worn case. The old strings shimmered faintly, like silver veins. "How much?" he asked softly. "$100, she whispered. "It was my dad's." The man's eyes lingered on the name faintly engraved on the headstock guy, Thomas Rivera. He recognized it instantly. Years ago, a young guitarist named Thomas had auditioned to play in one of his tours. He hadn't been chosen, but the older musician had never forgotten him. His passion, his fire. The way he'd spoken about playing for his little girl someday. Now here she was. That same daughter. Trying to sell her father's guitar. The man's chest tightened. His name, though Mara didn't yet know it, was Ozzy Osbourne. He'd come to Hollywood that day for an interview and a walk. But fate had clearly written another plan. He didn't tell her who he was. Instead, he looked at her and asked quietly, "Why are you selling it?" Mara's voice was barely a whisper. "My mom doesn't have money for food," she said. "I thought maybe someone would buy it. He loved this guitar. I don't want to, but I have to." Ozzy swallowed hard. Without saying another word, he pulled out his wallet, took out a crisp $100 bill, and handed it to her. Then, instead of taking the guitar, he gently closed the case and slid it back toward her. "You keep that," he said softly. "That's your dad's voice right there. Don't ever let it go." Mara frowned. "But then, I didn't sell it." He smiled. "You did. You just sold it to the right person. For the right reason. Now your dad's music stays with you. And the world still gets to hear it." Then he stood, walked to his black SUV, and pulled out his own guitar. Sitting cross-legged on the grass, he began to strum softly. People started to notice. Some stopped, some whispered, a few began recording. Ozzy looked at Mara and nodded. "Come on, let's make your dad proud." She sat beside him, clutching her father's guitar. Together, they began to play. A stripped-down version of "Dreamer." Ozzy's raspy voice carried through the boulevard. Mara's small hands trembled as she strummed along. The notes weren't perfect. Some strings buzzed, her rhythm stumbled. But it didn't matter. The music was alive. People gathered, moved, some wiping away tears. Bills and coins dropped into the open case. When the song ended, the crowd erupted in applause. Ozzy smiled, placed his hand over Mara's, and whispered, "That's what your dad wanted. For you to play." That evening, Mara walked home not only with groceries but over $4,000 in donations, collected by strangers who'd witnessed the moment online. The video went viral within hours. Messages pouring in from around the world, words of love. Families reunited, musicians dedicating songs to her father. But what mattered most was the look on her mother's face. The tears in her eyes when she saw her daughter walk in, still holding the guitar that glowed under the soft light of their tiny apartment. Days later, a package arrived at their door. Inside was a brand new guitar, signed with a simple message: "Keep playing, Mara. The world needs your song. Ozzy." And so, every evening, as the sun dipped behind the buildings, music drifted from their window. Not perfect, not polished, but full of heart. The sound of a little girl finding her strength again. Through the love her father left behind. And the kindness of a stranger who stopped to listen. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Because sometimes, the smallest act of compassion doesn't just change one life. It keeps a song alive forever.